Extension reports, Life Force promo, coping, ways to handle stress, record 11/20/81.
I'm sorry, ma'am, there doesn't seem to be sufficient funds to cover this check right now.
If life's little pressures and strains have you out on one great big limb, you won't want to miss seeing Coping Ways to Handle Stress on Life Force.
Extension reports, Life Force, coping, ways to handle stress, record 11/20/81, air date 12/1/81.
Welcome to Life Force, I'm Verda Williams. If life's little pressures and pains have you sitting out on a limb, you'll be interested in seeing the second installment of our two-part series, Coping Ways to Handle Stress. The Robert Schaefer family of Ames uses a coping device called a family council.
Time to begin our family council this afternoon, and the first item that we'll take up will be the calendar. So Betsy, if you'd like to handle that.
All right. Tomorrow is Saturday, and it's the football game with Colorado. Whose turn is it to go to the game?
Phillips. Me.
I think it's my turn.
And mine.
Okay.
Philip and Dad.
Okay.
We have a cold day.
Philip and Bob go to the football game. All right. Then Sunday church. Monday night, we have a school board meeting at Crawford School.
Yeah.
How long is it going to be?
That starts at 7:30. That would just be for the parents to go to.
Okay.
And I think it'd be important for one of us to be there.
You think we both should go?
Yeah. Can I babysit that night? If you guys are going?
Count on it.
We would-
Oh, good.
I don't know what time we'll be over. Okay.
Okay.
We'll plan on going, and you boys will babysit for Nicholas.
Okay.
Tuesday night, I don't have anything on the calendar.
No?
Wednesday night, we have a meeting at church.
I have scouts.
That's
And
right.
you have Cub Scouts. And who has piano lesson that day?
And I do.
Okay. Thursday, Andrew, you have orchestra again.
Yeah.
I have piano and clarinet.
Okay. Do you have to go anywhere at night, Bob?
Not Thursday night.
All right. Friday night looks open.
That's for you and-
Halloween, we're going to the tree.
Oh, yeah.
let's
All
trick or treating
right.
then. I think we need to decide who's going and who Nick is going with.
Nick's going with both Philip and I.
You're going together?
Yeah, we'll go with Nick for the first part of it, and then we'll take Nick back home, and then Philip and I will go out and
Take off.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Okay.
I want to go with them.
Okay.
Okay, that
You don't
takes-
have to.
That takes care of our week.
On Saturday morning, I have a Scout merit badge meeting.
Tomorrow or next Saturday?
Next, the 31st.
Okay.
Before we go to the game, you're going to have to take a walk. A hike. Right?
Okay. That's for your
That's his
Cub Scouts?
Everyone
Final
likes.
requirement.
Oh.
How far do we have to go?
Doesn't matter.
A day hike, it says in the book.
Well, we'll plan a day hike
Part of
Not
the day.
to the stadium.
half a day.
Okay.
The stadium walk around the stadium.
Who's turn to go to the football game?
Philip's turn. Philip and Daddy.
Okay?
You had
Okay.
your turn before. Okay, that's it for the calendar.
Okay. Are there other matters of business we need to discuss? Anything concerning you kids?
No.
Betsy?
Yes, if you remember at our last family council, I was concerned that people were leaving the kitchen in a mess. And we talked
Don't
about
tell me
that
we're doing
at
that
some
again.
length. And I just want to say that I think it's improved a lot.
Oh,
And I
good.
thank you, but keep it up.
Okay.
One thing the kids have talked about before is having to go to bed perhaps too soon to have any time for themselves. So are things working out pretty good? You have time to do your own reading and so on?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't seem to be too tired.
No.
One thing that occurs to me is you're reading them Huckleberry Finn now before they go to bed, and you're about finished with that. And I'd be anxious to get involved in the next book that you're going to read and have some input in deciding what book that's going to be.
Okay. Do you have a suggestion?
Yeah. I think it would be kind of nice. A book that I read a long time ago that I enjoyed was To Kill a Mockingbird.
Have you ever heard of that book?
No. Is it good?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's a charming book. It's very nice, and there's some good
Okay.
lessons in it.
Okay.
So it's about some young children growing up in the South during the Depression, during the 30s, and some of their experiences with growing up and with prejudice and what have you.
Well, I've perfected a southern accent by reading Huckleberry Finn
Okay.
as they move down the river,
Yeah.
so I guess I could do that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Are you guys gonna take the salamander back to my school again?
No.
You enjoyed the salamander, didn't you? Yeah. Everything else going okay then?
Yeah.
Nothing else we need to discuss?
Our Life Force camera crew traveled to the University of Minnesota, where Extension Human Development Specialist Randy Weigel and Ron Jones discussed stress and family councils with Doctors Hamilton McCubbin and Paul Rosenblatt.
About teaching families how to make decisions as a family unit, so the concept of family councils, is that a mechanism to help families cope with stress? Or
Is that good?
can it be? Yeah.
I say in general, absolutely. To help families to communicate with each other and to work things out is always an enhancing feature, because a lot of times families aren't aware that there's even a breakdown in communication patterns. They aren't even aware what their patterns are. And by helping families to clarify them, can't help but be conducive and productive. I always get concerned about anything that could go to the extreme.
Some of the families that we studied in the study of transmission of the farm from one generation to the next did a family council about the transmission issue. They'd get to all the children of these parents, and maybe a sibling of one of the parents would be involved in kitchen table discussion of transmitting the farm. And in some families that seemed to be very helpful in cooling people out and helping people understand what the parents were up to and what the parents' concerns were. In other families, I thought it was a problem. Dad and Mom might have talked about things before the kids got there, and they really weren't open to hearing the kids talk. Or Dad might say, well, we have to have a council, and here's what you're going to do, and here's what you're going to do, and here's what you're going to do, and then I'm going to have my way. So I think this, if you have in mind a family council where people are open to communicating and open to changing, it sounds great, but I think it's hard for some families to pull off. To do that without some assistance. Even with assistance, I would have my doubts.
So here's the question, maybe it's not appropriate for them.
Yeah.
But that I think professionals are well trained at, in terms of really determining, or at least hinting at, what would be the best communication patterns for various families. I understand from the therapies, there's no prescription on how these families ought to be. It's what fits them best, and the counselor's responsibility is to try and tailor fit it.
You know, one thing I think has to be said in all this discussion of stress and coping, that speaking as an expert, I have plenty of stress in my own life that I don't cope with that well. That knowing everything there is to know, not that I know it, but if I did know everything there was to know in the social sciences and in psychology about how one copes and what the stresses are, I'd still be a wreck some of the time. And there certainly are issues I haven't dealt with well in my life, or things that if I had the solution I would have solved last week or 2 years ago or 20 years ago. So there are limits to how much knowing about coping and stress can help us. And I think it's important for people to know in their understanding of anything that anybody says about coping and stress that you're not going to win them all anyhow. You can try, and maybe you can learn a lot, but there's still going to be some that you can't handle that well.
There's got to be a variety in the way people handle cope with stress, and like we were saying, there's no one way of doing it, and what works for one family, one individual will not work for another family. So they need to be willing to try different kinds of things and find, maybe it's jogging, maybe it's relaxation, maybe it's communication, finding the one that works for them and realizing that's not going to work in all situations.
Yeah, and in a family, we've got our differences to deal with. I mean, I know what would work for me, but I live with these children and this wife, and,
and they
don't seem to understand that that's what we have to do.
Yeah. And you're supposed to do it this way, and they say, no, I'm not going to do it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. As we talk about coping, I think it's important to point out, too, that after we get done with the studies, we sort of put away all the extra things that we also discovered, and we sort of condense it down in a very simplistic form. But I think the real life is coping is a trial and error process, where people try one thing, it doesn't work, and try another. And after we do our research, we ask them, what's the best ones? But we also want to communicate to families, by all means, try. The most important thing is you try and realize that some will work and some won't, and then tailor fit it to meet your own particular needs.
Economic conditions have forced many people out of work. Here are some ideas on the importance of family communications.
Losing a job is a difficult experience, whether it was the only paycheck coming into the household or whether you were a two-paycheck household and now you're down to one. When you've lost your job or when another family member's lost your job, it's a difficult time for a family. I think it's very important to communicate about how you're feeling about losing the job and what difference it's going to make. It's important to talk to all members of your family. Don't try to keep this information just with yourself. Generally, it's best if you can face family members with the facts right away and talk about the differences it's going to make in your level of living, in your lifestyle. With the economic situation the way it is today, many people are unemployed. Many good workers are finding it difficult to find a job. It's important to lift yourself beyond the feeling of blame and anger to a place where you have your enthusiasm back and you are able to look for a new job. I think it's helpful to look at how you're using your money and the differences that reduced income will make to your family. Talk to all members of the family, including children.
For more tips on coping with difficult economic times, contact your county extension office.
Stress has a way of tying families up. Money problems, illness, conflict, and pressures can serve as a tightrope that constricts family members. And sometimes all it takes is just one event to create a crisis so blinding, so incapacitating that the family has trouble functioning as a unit.
The family has resources that it can use to manage stress, to cope with stress. It has the family itself, themselves, the members in the family, the strength they have as a family, how much family togetherness they have. They also have the skills they have, the decision-making skills the family has, the amount of money they may have to take care of some of the stresses. Also the perception that the family has. Do they perceive it as being stressful or not? Some things they don't think is too stressful at all. Another family, it might be very, very stressful. They also have support. Support from family, support from friends, support from neighbors who can help. So why don't you come over here? I want you to put one arm right there, support. Why don't you come over here, put an arm right there, support. Also what families have to help them manage stress is they have communities. They have the community organizations. So what I want you to do here, why don't you come over here, Kim, and grab a hold right here. Why don't you grab a hold right there, Julie? Okay, kind of pull back a little. All right, right there. They have all these kinds of things helping the family cope with some of the stresses they have. Okay, families, you two, whatever you want to do, just go ahead and do. Whatever's natural, whatever you feel like doing, just go ahead and do it.
Somebody get me out of here. Would you help me?
Okay. Do you need some more help?
I need some more help.
There are a number of agencies in Iowa that are marvelous resources for families with problems. In Ames, the People Place offers a variety of services to family members. Rosemary, could you tell me a little bit about the philosophy and the programs that are offered by the People Place?
The People Place offers a variety of programs because we feel like people have a variety of needs to be met. One of the basic things we're here for is for people to drop down and they can do whatever they'd like, or they can join into maybe the human potential class, a parenting class, a support group for parents of new infants. This afternoon there's a craft group going on.
It can go straight up. Technically, Bargello goes straight up and down, but you can make it slant too. You can use it for Christmas gifts, for teachers, or just a good friend that you want to give a little something to. Especially someone who doesn't do needlework really appreciates these.
And a support group for volunteers so they can learn how to deal with some situations they've had, and in turn maybe help someone else work through a situation someone who comes down to the People Place. We have about 20 full-time volunteers. By full-time I mean they come in once every week to volunteer. And then we have volunteers that do things occasionally for us. We have many professionals that volunteer here and give their time by leading a class or in some capacity like that. We have a library with many books on child development, parenting, human growth and development. We have pamphlets from Extension, from other social service agencies in town, and our participants can come and help themselves and learn in that way also. We have a group that meets in the evening, a support group for single parents. We have childcare all the time we're open, and there is no charge for the childcare. So parents can drop down or come to a class and we take care of their children while they're here. Many times we offer something for parents and children together, such as a craft that they can do together. Good but inexpensive childcare is not easy for working parents to find. We visited the Irving Multicultural Center in Des Moines and found a multitude of programs for all family members. Mrs. Davis, would you please tell us about the programs offered by the Irving Multicultural Center?
Well, the Irving Multicultural Center sits at 16th and Forest and started out as Tiny Tot Child Care Center and serving the area in various ways. We have other agencies that have moved in to serve the area for various programs. And we have, most of them serve parents from the area. Soul Street is a daycare center that was started on Forest some years ago, and it's a preschool. And they serve some from 10 to 30 children. Of course, that number is down now. Tiny Tot serves up to around 300 children. That number is down now. But we still have a preschool that is run by volunteers to supplement for Head Start. Head Start is only allowed to have 45 children this year in our classes, so therefore those that are on a waiting list have a preschool operated by volunteers and volunteer dollars. Carter G. Woodson is a cultural center that does a lot of cultural things, primary and black culture. They do a lot of black history training through the center with various children. They work with a lot of the community and arts, crafts, and etc. We also have Child and Family Services that work with ADC mothers that can't budget their money and things, and they have budget meetings with them and assist them in spending their dollars. The grandparent program, our grandparents that are on a foster grandparent program, and they've been in Tiny Tot for many years, and they work with the 2 and the 3-year-olds and the Head Start program and be grandparents to them. These people carry over into the homes with the grandparent program. So we feel that's a very good program. Live Extension Service this past year had gardens all through the community. They did a lot in ceramics and things, and they did some training for Tiny Tot staff and nutrition and health and things. So they have been great help to the people that we serve. Day for Care for Exceptional Children, some of the children that come here have brothers or sisters that need to go into that program. So that's right in the area, and it serves two purposes for the family. The Resource Center is a large program, and that is a library program, and that is for family daycare homes. They have a large training they do, and that's through Polk County, funded through Polk County. They do lots and lots of training, and they have toys that they allow people that have daycare homes to come in and get toys and things. So it makes it so that the daycare home is a comprehensive home. It gives the daycare home mother a broader look at what she's doing in daycare. And so there are a lot of things that they do. It would take too long to really tell.
Finally, Mrs. Davis, is there anything you'd like to say to our viewing audience?
I would love to say that any of those that have any time to volunteer, any of those that are concerned about the community, and especially inner city community where I'm concerned, that if they could do anything towards volunteering in any of these programs or can help raise any kind of funding, that would be appreciated.
A family member's illness is particularly hard to cope with, especially if that illness is cancer. Newton's Mary Frances Skiff Memorial Hospital offers a group session for cancer patients called I Can Cope.
Have you had any unusual experiences or anything that you'd like to share about coping with the changes that this chronic illness has brought in your life?
Well, I think one of the things that was hard for me to cope with at first was I would notice my friends say something to each other, and you knew that they wanted to come up and express in words or some way how they felt, but they didn't know how to do it. And I know I've been in exactly the same position, and I have avoided saying things to people when I should have said something. If they only realize just going up and taking hold of their hand or something of that sort says as much as anything. But don't be afraid to go up to people that have cancer. They're not, they understand that you have feeling and you're feeling sorry for them, and they understand, but you don't need to dwell on it. Just say, I read it in the paper, or I heard it, or something, or even a note. You can say some things sometimes by writing a nice note to them means more than anything.
Immediately after my diagnosis, we had a baby girl at home, so that's an additional change that we had to cope with all in the last 3 months. So it's been a unique experience. It's been rewarding. I don't think that I could cope with it if I didn't have a very strong faith. I think that's essential.
I've got lupus that I had from the 63. And so it has been very, which caused the arthritis, and I have had a lot to cope with for a long time, but cancer is something different.
What do you suppose it is about it that makes it different, that's more difficult maybe to cope with?
It's more life-threatening.
More life-threatening?
For the one thing.
The word cancer.
The word cancer.
Just the word.
I agree with Vivian there. When people heard that I had cancer, even my family, their reaction immediately is, that's shortens your life expectancy. Do you have your house in order? Those are the types of things that people ask you, and those are also the types of things that I think maybe become more real to us each day. I had to reassess my long-range goals as far as my occupation, and just that word by itself is enough to make people take notice and to change.
But we are lucky we can get our houses in order. A guy that's taken like that with a heart attack doesn't have that chance.
That's correct.
So you're having some real serious things to think about and be grateful for, and recognize that.
Yes. And it's just like in this program that when we came, we had the lawyers, we had the funeral directors, we had all the different ones, and brought more of this to our attention, and it made it easier for us to cope with it at home then and talk these things over and take care of these things. So the program was quite an asset in that way.
Let's close our session then with an amour. As you remember, an amour is a moment of reflection. This is one I particularly appreciate.
I like this one, too.
Okay. Breathe deep into your strength to plan for tomorrow. Then leave tomorrow to take care of itself and celebrate being alive today. That kind of goes along with the philosophy that you were sharing earlier. Do you want to do it again, Vivian?
That I sign my letters with the saying of cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today.
Feeling good, feeling free, feeling good. Watch this, y'all.
The Chinese have two definitions of crisis. It's either a threat or an opportunity. The Cooperative Extension Service of Iowa urges you to challenge all the little stressors in your life and use them as an opportunity to grow. This is Verda Williams for the Extension Service of Iowa and Life Force.